Hey, wait.
Oh, we're
Since we
live.
don't. Okay. Never mind.
Sorry. Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's live stream with Eli Coleman on observability with the Elasticsearch. Super excited that Eli can join us today from the road, and I will hand things over to him. Oh,
Great.
really quickly, if there are any questions, feel free to post them in the chat and I will read them.
Perfect. Well, today we're going to talk about observability, but like she said, I'm a nomad at trait. I've been working here at Elasticsearch for just shy under 6 years, I think it is. Prior to coming to Elasticsearch, I used to work at a large SIM company. So I spent most of my life looking at logs, analyzing logs and metrics. Prior to that, I used to work at a data center and deal with a lot of observability there, with machines going down or trying to figure out problems that might be arising from either software or hardware issues. So pretty much my whole life has been surrounded by observability, and I'm very excited to teach you guys and a little bit about our observability. And like I said, if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to ask them along the way. How I like to do this is I'll go through some slides and then I will show you guys a demo. And then if there's anything that you want to deep dive in, please let me know. So first things first, shameless promotion, but I am part of the training team, and the training team has a bunch of different certifications out there and also our engineering certification. So this looks like it's a little bit older slide. We used to break out engineering 1 and 2. We've combined those together to teach you 1 week-long course. But we do deep dives and specializations in each one of these areas. So we'll broadly talk about a lot of these subjects, but if you really want to go a lot deeper, I highly suggest doing full training, or there's a bunch of different resources out in our community, like the discuss.elastic.co, or we have a bunch of videos that are published, including this one. So without ado, we'll keep on going on. So first off, one of the things that Shai, our owner, used to always say is search is something that every company should have. And that really hits home with everything that we're going to do with observability. You can't really just couple one thing or the other, right? So looking at just logs or just metrics in today's standard really doesn't just work. So we have to combine all these technologies and make almost everything searchable, right? So here's a good slide of that, right? So we might want to go in between machine learning to a map, to a data histogram, to just a generic search bar, okay? And we need this ebb and flow between all these different technologies to really figure out what the issue is, okay? All right, so a couple of different technologies that are out there is we have the ability for scale, speed, and reliability. And our different technology stacks, I wish I had a little whiteboard, but I'm on one single screen. Elasticsearch is really designed for that speed of finding what you're looking for at massive scale, okay? And that really differentiates our technology from anything like SQL or relational data store, where you're really going to sit at a slower speed. It might be a little bit more ability to do checks and balances, but you won't get that speed and that scale that you will with Elasticsearch. If anyone is new to the stack or a refresher of the stack, here is a great visualization of that. Okay, a lot of people know us as the ELK stack, Elastic, Logstash, and Kibana, but we've grown way more than that. We've acquired a lot of different companies, and we started really to split up our services depending on what the client or what the actual need is. But as a whole, our stack has stayed pretty much similar. We've just added a lot of different features and functionalities to it. But at the bottom, you see that we have Beats and Logstash. Okay, this is how we're going to bring in data. Simple way to understand Beats, lightweight shipper, Logstash, going to be server side, going to take more processing. And then we're going to push that all into Elasticsearch. Elasticsearch is going to be the meat and potatoes of all of this. Okay, this is how we're going to be able to do it at scale and how we're going to do it quickly. That being said, I don't have 4 days to go through this. So if you want to understand some querying languages and the technology like Lucene that goes underneath the scenes of Elasticsearch, definitely go take some training. And then last but not least, we have bosses, people that like to see visualizations, including what we'll be doing in this class, which is a lot of people like to see visualizations. We'll be working with Kibana. Kibana is just our head that communicates to Elasticsearch itself. All right. Well, now that we have the stack, we actually have these services. Okay. One of the services is Elasticsearch Enterprise Search. Okay. This is where we're going to put stuff in like Google Docs, things from your websites, and you want to be able to search over those easily. We'll more focus on the next part, which is the Elasticsearch Observability. This is more of your metrics, your logs, your uptime, okay? And then the last but not least is the Elasticsearch Security. So a couple of years back, we moved into what we used to call SIEM. We've removed the name SIEM. Thank you. Not a huge fan of the word SIEM. Moved it to Elasticsearch Security. Again, that's a huge product and it's on its own, but that's going to entail any security-related events. All right, I really won't stay much longer on this slide. We've kind of seen the stack. It's just another visualization of that. One really important thing to note is that Elasticsearch has really moved forward on making this Elastic Cloud first. Okay, so if you want to fire up observability, you can do this on Elastic Cloud by just picking a cloud name. That's all you have to do. One single name, pick it, you're good to go. All right. Also, we made it very easy with free trials to use. If you want to kick up your game a little bit, you can use Elastic Cloud Enterprise. This is usually for customers that want that cloud experience, but to customize it and to be able to build out multiple clusters and control them. And then last but not least, we run on Kubernetes. So if anyone's out there interested in Kubernetes, we fully support that. You know, Kubernetes is the new hotness. Someday in the future, there'll be a different hypervisor or different virtual technology. Positive, we'll run on that too. So we make it very easy to choose a platform and to run on it. Like I said, you can fire this up in the cloud very easily. I'll show you a quick little cloud demo coming up. Unfortunately, again, I only have one screen to show. But you can alter this to any extent that you want. So you can dial this up or down. And of 7x, we now support auto scaling. So you can set this hands-free, let it scale up to your desired results. Okay, let's keep on keeping on. So when we talk about observability, that word seems kind of like just big and generic. Okay, and it can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. What this means to Elasticsearch is the ability to grab multiple different sources of information and bubble up some kind of action, like look at it and see if there's any anomalies, make some kind of alerting, build a dashboard or report. What is it from? Well, it's from different metrics, different logs, different traces potentially. Okay. So a couple of different things that we need to talk about is how we're going to bring in our data, and then also how much of that data is important to us, right? So we can always bring in a ton of different data, but sometimes we might want to limit the amount of data that we bring in based upon different things, like 200 success rates. You don't really care that, you know, the machine that successfully logged in or logged in out, okay? So you might want to mitigate some of those in the future. So we support a lot of different technologies that are out there, right? So again, different containers, different microservices, different cloud providers. And through the demo, I'll show you a quick and easy way that you can bring in whatever source that you want, all right? And we support a lot of these out of the gate, but there are some community-based ones that are available if we do not have the one that you're looking for. Again, we try to provide most of the main core ones out there, but there's thousands and we don't have unlimited resources to do that. So there are some that are out there that are community-based. All right. Well, in the past, a lot of teams used to be built like this, right? You might have a team just for APM, a team just for uptime, just for metrics, just for logs, right? And as a performance tester at my last company, I can tell you a lot of times it was just one or the other, right? As a performance tester, they would say, okay, put as much performance stuff that you want on this machine and collect that. And a lot of times I would just be looking for metrics, how fast did it run, all that kind of stuff. I wasn't looking under the scenes in potentially logs or uptime. And then later on, we said, okay, well, we need more of a holistic view of this, right? If I'm only looking at metrics and the machine's to topple down, I should go and look in the logs and figure out why is it toppling down. Is there some tweak I could just make to make it continuously run a little bit better, or is it just the end of the line for that machine? All right, and so in Elasticsearch, we tried to bring these all together. Try to make it so if you have somebody that's a performance tester versus somebody that's just looking in the logs, or potentially somebody that's in IT and just wants to look up if a machine's up or down, we can give that ability to every single person on that team. And we can divide these availabilities by security too. Okay. So we'll keep on diving in. I don't think there's any questions yet. Okay. So one of the most important things to Elasticsearch as of 6X was to bring in data, right? When I first started in 1X, none of this was available, right? You had to go find a wiki and be like, okay, well, I want to bring in a Redis, so, let's go. And now we made it super simple to just go and say add data and then find different data points that you want to add in. Again, this is not going to be the end-all be-all list, but it is getting bigger and bigger every single day. Okay. These are the different components broken out. I do want to hit home, again, majorly important between beats and Logstash. I think there's more a question of, do I use beats? Do I use Logstash? Then do I use Elasticsearch and Kibana, right? Always think about beats as being that lightweight shipper. If you want to put something on your phone or a tablet or somebody's computer, and you don't want to be a very big burdensome on that device, beats all day long, right? This is, we're going to grab files, packets, files, packets, audit logs, all that fun stuff, grab it from beats. Logstash, on the other hand, has a JDBC connector. It can connect to databases. This is going to be a centralized management and the ability to do things like filtering and enrichment and send it to a device outside of Elasticsearch if you're interested. Okay. And then, of course, we have Elasticsearch where we're going to store this, and Kibana where we're going to visualize all of this. All right. Some of our different beats that are out there. File beat for collecting files, right? This can be an INI. This can be a flat file. Different formats are definitely available. Metric beats. This is going to grab all your different metrics. Doesn't matter if you're on Mac, Linux, Windows, right? Packet beats. We're going to grab all the different packets that are across the network. Function beat. This is going to be your serverless monitoring. We have the WinLog beat. We have the heartbeat up and down. We have the audit beat. And then also using libbeat, you can create your own beat. So if you have a desire to build your own beat, you can go ahead and do that. All right. So here's a bunch of different lists of applications and platforms and data streams that we allow for ingestion. Okay. Again, we can take it in logs, metrics, messages, scripts, tickets, alerts, whatever you want to do, you can push that into Elasticsearch. right? So the whole idea is to take all these documents and push them in. One of the technologies that I'm really interested in is that raw document. And Elasticsearch has a machine learning team that's working really hard on just allowing you to just drag and drop different files into Elasticsearch and analyze those. Okay, again, we have the different modules. So if you want to communicate with potentially a different database, okay, if you wanted to potentially talk to SQL, you can go ahead and do that already with the modules. All right, let's keep on keeping on. So once we brought in our data into Elasticsearch, we now can visualize it. We can build dashboards. We later on can build things like machine learning jobs. All right. This is a little bit older slide, so you'll probably see in the demo, machine learning will look a little bit different. But if you're new to machine learning, that's going to be so we can analyze our data over time, find different anomalies, find different detections. Always remember, machine learning does its best job when you have a large sum of data. When you can go through a large sum of data and really get a holistic view of that data, you'll be way better off. Next, we have a logging solution. Wonderful. Back in the day, 1x, 2x, we had almost like everyone was just logging on Elasticsearch, but we didn't actually have a logging tool. So people would export this and make their own tools. Now we have a tool that it's basically so we can see it in real time. You can drill down into individual logs, okay? So you can see them holistically over time for every log, or you could say one machine, or one unit, or one AZ, whatever you wanted on that log format. All right. One of the best new improvements too is what we considered this waffle type of diagram. And this is a running slideshow. But this ability to look at our data kind of like a heat map would do, but we call it a waffle diagram. And we can split this up onto different things like zones, potentially AZs, providers, if you have AWS, Google, or Alibaba, okay? And then you can see our different metrics. So you could look at a metric maybe like input versus space. And then we could actually click on each individual machine and it'll drop us into a metric of just that machine, which is really nice. Another thing that we have is Canvas, and Canvas allows you to take your data and basically make a live screenshot or PowerPoint of your data. Very powerful. This is a great way of displaying your data when it comes to like corporations. You put up a big giant slideshow. I will tell you that building something like this versus a dashboard, this is going to take you a lot longer time because it's really detail oriented. All the different elements you want to be in the right place. Visually, you're going to make it appealing to yourself and others. Where dashboards, you can kind of just drag and drop and build something quite quickly. So decide, hey, is this going to be something that we're going to put on our website, or potentially as somebody walks into the building that we want to see live real data, but we really want to spice it up with our own look and feel. If so, Canvas is going to be your best bet. One of the holy grails that is out there is APM, Application Performance Monitoring. So remember how I was grabbing metrics and logs? What if I had the power to attach a library into one of my applications and grab system information and also application information? So if you have the ability to run APM, I would highly suggest it. This will give you a high grade detail of what the customer or what the user is doing on your device. It also will collect errors, logs, and then you can actually do these stack traces that allow you to look and see where you might have issues inside of your software. Uptime, just like the word describes it, as if a system has gone up or down, right? So potentially this could be a physical system. This also could be a switch. This could be also a website, for instance, if you wanted to ping a bunch of different websites. You can see the response. You can see when it last tried to ping it. And then it will do a intermittent back off if it cannot find it or it has been down, so it doesn't continuously try to ping it. But you can see when the last time it was, and then you can correspond that potentially with any logs or events that happened. All right, machine learning. So let's say we took that data, let's say our uptime or our disk space. We could put that into machine learning. It'll give us an algorithm and it'll say, hey, we have a forecast, you're going to run out of memory in X number of days. Or you can see potential traffic. Let's say if you're trying to find any spikes that happen in traffic or unusual events in traffic, you can use machine learning to go ahead and find that out for you. With all of this, we've added also alerting. And alerting will allow you to build something like the above statement. I'm looking for count, the top 10 server names, and anything that's above 20, I'm going to grab that and create an alert. Elasticsearch has made alerting so easy. They put it in almost everything now. So if you have a visualization, you can immediately right-click on that visualization and say, hey, I want to create an alert. Or if you have a machine learning job, you can right-click on that and say, I want to create an alert. And so Elasticsearch has been saying, you know what, there's all these different areas, and if you can visualize it, you should be able to alert on it too. All right, I know there's quite a bit of slides, but we'll still get to a good demo here soon. One really important thing to talk about, and it's a little bit outside of the visualization of observability, but index lifecycle management really allows you to manipulate your data over time. The data that you're going to bring in for observability today might not be as important 10 years or 5 years or even 2 days from today, right? And how are you going to manage that data going forward? Are you going to throw it away? Are you going to take snapshots of it? Are you going to freeze it? Are you going to move it to different servers? All of that would be under index lifecycle management. I know I didn't do it justice by just talking about it for literally 1 minute. It's a great subject. There's a lot of different things you can do inside of lifecycle management. So I would suggest this is one area that I would highly suggest you to look at. One part of that is the ability to roll up your data. So let's take, for instance, maybe stock prices, right? If you looked at today's stock prices, they have all day long, right? The ticker's going up and down, up and down, up and down. But at the end of the day, do you really care? No, that's what that candlestick was designed for, right? The low, high, and the average. So we can take our data and say, over a period of time, I might want to only grab the min, max, and average every 15 minutes, okay? So if you look at like anything, Zillow, for instance, will tell you how much your house is worth every single day. But they also have a chart on the bottom that shows you over time. They're not going to show you every single day point. They're probably going to say every month we want to know an average, min, max, and sum. Right? So if you roll up your data, you will significantly see more disk space, right? You're getting rid of some of that data. And observability data like logs and metrics can potentially take up a bunch of space. Elasticsearch schema, we are going to be moving between logs, metrics, events, all these different areas in Elasticsearch. And we've created a schema, which is basically naming, and we've all agreed upon said naming, okay? So if you're always wondering, okay, I brought in a log or a metrics, how do I be able to use it in all these different applications so seamless? Like I can filter based upon a provider or based upon an OZ or whatever else. And that's because we named them in such a way that we can filter them based upon those names. All right, again, it's a big ecosystem. We start with our beats. Our beats can then go into a load balancer or directly into Logstash or Elasticsearch. APM, remember we're going to attach that directly to our application. APM requires an APM server. The reason is you will have a bunch of different transactions and they can bind those together. All right. So potentially if you have a checkout cart in Amazon, you don't want it every single time somebody checks out, to create a log and a message for that. You might want to say, okay, let's grab a sample set of that. And then again, Elasticsearch is where we're going to store all those logs, metrics, and then Kibana is where we're going to visualize everything. There's only 2 little slides on security, but we allow for security. Even with the basic license, you can get some forms of security. And they'll allow you to divide up this to whatever roles you want. So again, we'll be bringing in metrics, logs, events, and you might not want every single person in your team to have access to that, right? You might want to say, oh, certain logs are off limits to this person. Well, we can easily do that using our security. All right, alerting. Again, I'm not going to hit this too hard because we've already hit it. And I'll show you a little bit of that when we get into our demo. But we can always do things by email, PagerDuty, or you can create a custom event, right? We have a lot of customers that if something happens, they'll create a report inside Elasticsearch and send that out by email. Okay. Again, these are different things that we might want to look into, right? We might want to get an alert if disk space is over 5%, right? Or process X started, or network issues X, Y, and Z, right? Or our application has passed our SLA or TTL, okay? If you're not familiar with SLA and TTL, it's 2 different acronyms. Those are like basically standards that an application has to live by. So if your application has to retrieve back data within 4 minutes, right, and you pass that 4-minute mark, you're going to have to do something in order to make it get underneath that 4-minute mark. 4 minutes is fairly high SLA, right? If you imagine most standard websites, if you cannot load that website within seconds, you're like, I'm out. I can't deal with this. So making sure that our SLAs are upheld is a very important thing to us. Okay. And again, you can do different things inside of alerting, different things like data match and pipelines. If you're interested, I would definitely consider training for pipelines. Very big topic to discuss, but very powerful for manipulating your data as it comes into Elasticsearch. We've already kind of talked about the alerting. Sorry, there's a few slides in this. I sometimes have quite a bit of time, so this one I will drill down a little bit more. And then you can actually look at your history alerts. So your alerts will actually create its own index. From that index, you actually can evaluate those alerts, see if you have a high point of alerts, low point of alerts, or if you need to do any mitigation with that. Okay, I think this is our last little subject. Again, APM, if you have some of the supported languages, this list is getting bigger. So if you obviously have Python, Java, Ruby, .NET, it's out of beta, then we will support all those different languages for APM. APM, again, you can go through, you'll see all the different alerts, errors, messages. I'm going to quickly slide by this because I'll actually show you more in the demo. But distributed traces, this is one of the reasons why you have the APM server. That way you can roll up all of these distributed traces, because you can imagine if you collected each one of them, they might have different IDs, they might have different variables inside of each one of them, and there could be hundreds, if not thousands, of these consistently. kind of went over that. All right. Any questions before we get to demos? Any questions? Exit off this screen. Okay. We will go straight into that. All right. So to start with, we'll get into this Elastic Cloud demo. One thing that I always like to note when you go to .co, see free and open source. Sorry, my internet's a little slow here. I go into log in. Just bear with me. Feel free to send me an email. I never read emails, but I live on Slack. So one of the wonderful things that you can see here is we can have a bunch of our different Elastic Cloud developments. But the one thing I really want to hit home on this page is you also see different community events. If you've never been to our Elasticon event, definitely go to that. It's a lot of fun. We do a lot of different speeches. They all get recorded and then shared out, so that's always nice. But I come in to create deployment. Again, this is not an Elasticsearch problem. It's my problem. My internet is terribly slow here. But all I need to do is create a deployment name, okay? And then everything else is filled out, and I can create that deployment, all right? Like I said before, to get into Elastic Cloud, super easy. All you have to do is just initiate a name. You can change any of these. So if you want different providers, okay, or different regions, I would highly suggest picking a region in your area. And then you can pick different hardware profile. But you can also go into advanced and then drill into each one of these and design your platform exactly the way that you want. All right. So without that taking place, if we get into Elasticsearch, this is Kibana, okay? I'm using our demo lab environment. One of the things that is new to Elasticsearch that is extremely nice is our search everywhere. So this little bar here, this will take us to all of our different platforms. And you can see some of them are listed at observability, okay? Or if I pull out this side, you can see here, these are all the observability apps, okay? So we'll go through each one of these and talk about this in detail. So if we go over to the overview section, we can see overview of any of our systems. One of the things that's most important too with the overview section is our time picker. We're looking at the last 15 minutes, but you can obviously come up here and change that time range that you want. But one of the great parts about this is you can look over the different alerts, the different log events, any of your hosts, your loads, and then different services, and then uptime, any of the monitoring. And then now we also have user experience, okay? So using APM, we can see here any of our user experience stuff. And this is really nice. This will allow for like things like errors, latency, traffic, all that fun stuff. Okay, so luckily this one is doing pretty good. You can go into finer grain detail by seeing these different shows. Okay, and I highly encourage you to go around and play around with this a little bit, but we don't have a ton of time, so I will go through each of the different observability. And you can see here now I'm into the observability and I have the different overviews. I have logs, metrics, APM, uptime, and user experience. All right. So with the alerts, you can see any of the alerts that are fired. All right. You can also create different alerts from here. You can manage different rules. Okay. Also, if you have any cases, we don't have any cases yet. You'll see any cases here. With logs, you'll be able to see a stream of logs that come in. Okay, this is going to be all of your logs from all of your different devices, right? And you can change the ability for time. So this is showing 1 day. This slider is really nice because it depicts, the log flow over here. You can see here that we got some more logs in during this period of time. So we can jump directly to that time. One of the wonderful things is I have ECS, so I can look for things like host. Okay, and I could look for a host CPU, host domain, host city origin name, right? And I could say is equal to, and then look for whatever city I'm looking for, right? If I like a single log file here, I can always click it and I can view detail. So it'll show me all the different metadata. Anytime you see these little lines right here, that indicates that I can actually filter based upon that. So if I want to filter only the GCP logs, I can click that and look for only the GCP logs, all right? And then one of the things that's really wonderful is I can come here and I can view in context. Okay, so now it's going to go back, figure out where that log came from and what different line events were before and after that log event. Okay, which is extremely powerful. Now you don't have to go and try to figure out, okay, was that on host 5, log file X, Y, and Z? No, it'll know the exact positioning of that. Because we all know when it comes to logs, usually the problem persists 4 or 5 lines up, something happens, it trips up, and then the event actually happens. Okay. You can look for different anomalies using Elasticsearch, and then categories. Metrics, we'll dive into that. So again, metrics will allow you to look at like a waffle-like diagram. And one of the things I really like about this waffle-like diagram is the ability to say, hey, you know what? I want to look at our Kubernetes pods, okay? Or I want to look at our Docker containers. Or I want to look at, AWS EC2 instances. We do not have one. So I'm going to go back to host. And by default, we can see our different metrics, okay? So log rate, inbound traffic, all that fun stuff. And we can add a metric, okay? So I can select from one of these many, 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 many different things that we collect in our metric beat, okay? So we have a ton of different things. So a lot of people come up here and they're like, oh, I only see CPU, load or inbound traffic. Well, I want something custom or something, advanced. Well, just add metrics and you can, go to your heart's content. Okay. You could also group by a custom field if you want to, just as if you can grab a metric, but you also can look for like machine types. Okay. And then I could do a sorting if I want to do a certain metric or a certain name. I can pick that. And then I can pick my different color schemes. So if I want to, a warm feel, I can go for a warmer feel. Okay. If I wanted to, I could pick my min and my max, my scale ratios. Because again, this is just a waffle kind of like trying to describe if you should be concerned or not with this single variable. Then I can always click into this and see this machine's metrics if I'm collecting all the metrics. And if I hook up logs, I can see any log events or log rates. Okay, so I can see the CPU, the memory, so forth and so on. Okay, you can look at any logs if we collect them, any processes, any metadata, anomalies, all that fun stuff. Or I can shoot off to APM or Uptime. I also can come to this metric explorer and see any metrics for any of my devices. Okay. So any host or anything like that. Let me see if I have anything for 1 year. Yeah. But you saw a slide of this. I'm using demo.elastic, so I don't really have control over this 100%. Oh, here we go. Problem with slow internet. So anyways, inside here, you can see these different averages. So we're grabbing average CPU, we're grabbing average pod, and then we're grouping by everything. But I could group by broker, I could group by agent type, host name, all different metrics. All right, APM, application performance monitoring. You can look and we'll have all of our different services provided. It's going to take a little bit of time because of my slow internet. So you can see here we have a whole host of different services, right? We have some Go services, we have some Python, some Opbean, some Node, okay? You can also tag these, so if they're just in development, you can see that our latency, our throughput, and then our failed transaction rate. So you can see this one has a fairly high failed transaction rate, so we can go click into that. This will show our latency, our throughputs, our different transactions. We'll see our impact on, how this transaction overall hurts the environment or helps the environment. You can see different errors that are happening. And then any dependencies, and then any of the instances that are here. Okay, so one of the wonderful things that a lot of people do is they go through these transactions, see the different latency, they'll see any stack traces that they're looking for. You can drill into this, find different metadata. A lot of times people will put customer names or host names inside of here, so it ties it to something that they're looking for. I'm going to quickly show dependencies. It's an area where a lot of people give it a little bit of time. So this will show any of your dependencies on different devices. You can even see a service map. And the service map should show you all the different services and how they interconnect to each other. Just like we know, single web page, web page back in the day used to maybe call one database, but now with single page applications, we have the ability to have all kinds of devices. So if we zoom in here, we can see here that we have our RUM, and our RUM will communicate with our nodes. Our node is going to communicate with a bunch of different Go services. This checkout service has all corresponding. It's even going to this .NET service. So you can see that just for this one application, we have a lot of intermingling with different services. Some services, this one, this PacketBeat and this MetroBeat, is only connecting to Elasticsearch. Or you might have this SQLite, nothing's really happening on it. I can click on it. I can see it's different latency, it's different throughput, and any information about that. Next, we'll go to Uptime. Okay, and Uptime, again, will let you change your time frame that you might want, but it'll allow you to see different services and if they are up or if they are down. One important part is you can change different tags, or different schema, or different ports or locations. Okay, so we try to give you some data or options at the top for most commonly searches. So instead of searching in here, a lot of people are searching location or tags or anything like that. You can see any that are just up, or you can select ones that are just down. Once you've selected what you want, you can always come in here and click the name. It'll jump into monitoring of that and tell you a little bit about the history, how often it pings it out, okay, what the response back that it usually gives me. And then I can add things like location if I choose to. Okay, so this one has been doing great. You can even put things like URLs, so you can go check the website itself or check the device itself, which is super nice. We also have TSL certificates, so we can see if the TSL certificate is going to expire or not. And then last but not least, user experience. Okay, so this is going to give us information about page loads, some different metrics, and some different core website stuff. Again, this is we've seen this a lot in the industry. Websites have been doing this for many years, but this will give you quite a lot of information about where your users are coming from, where your load is, your breakdowns of different systems. So we can see here most of us are using Linux on this, and then a couple different errors and messages. So super powerful. If you have an application or website out there that you really want to see some more data around it, then I highly encourage you to use this. But this is our observability. As you can see here, we really push forward with alerts in different cases, but we also bring in different information like logs, metrics, APM, uptime, and that user experience. You can play all of these games, one of these games. So you could say, I want observability, but I'm only going to collect logs. Perfectly fine to do. Or you're saying, I want to do observability and I only want to collect metrics. Perfectly fine. All right. Same thing with APM or uptime. The last thing I want to show is that you might be thinking to yourself, okay, I do want logs or I do want metrics, but how the heck do I bring that data in? Okay. I'm going to try to come up here and see if add will work. So usually the easiest way is come down to here, and you'll see the add ingestion, and it'll take you over to this area where you can search for whatever you're looking for. So for instance, let's say I want to do node, search for anything cloud-based, file-based, okay, which is pretty nice. Also, one of the nice things that you can do also is that we allow for these sample data sets. Okay, so you can bring in each individual sample data set, and this will allow you to first and foremost just get data into Elasticsearch. That way you can analyze it, look at it without bringing in any devices or having to do any of that. If we come back to devices again, and I want to add something, okay, it'll give me a full detail of that, what version it is. Sometimes it'll give me a screenshot, and then I can add that data. Also, it'll give me the different metadata that's involved that match the Elastic schema. All right. I know that was a ton of information, so I'm going to leave it there and see if there's any questions.
Yeah, thanks. That was awesome. We'll just make it just so Eduardo able to roll up date.
Sorry, there was a little bit of lag on my end. Question about rollover, is that correct?
Yeah. Is it possible to roll up data?
Yeah, so let me, as I'm still sharing my screen, it looks like. So if we come up here to rollover, just that individual. I'm going to go a different way. Sorry. 1 second. All right. I don't know if I have access to this one, so I'm going to go back to my deployment and just jump on something. Sorry, there's a lot of clicks. I'm using our demo environment. I don't think I have permissions for Rollup on that, so I'm going to go to something I own. So give it 1 second. I'll just pick a default thing. So I'm going to go into stack management, and then I have this thing called a rollup job. All right. And if I click rollup job, I can create a rollup job. Okay. And it has these different stages. And the reason for these different stages is to allow you to do different actions in each one of these stages. So let's actually walk through it. I'm going to give it a great name. Okay. Most important part is it's going to want an index pattern to start with. Obviously, you could do star to just make it work, but you really want something of an index that you have, okay? Next, you'll pick up the index pattern, okay? So I do have one that already matches that. So let's see if I have. So the next one is it's going to give you a roll-up index name. So remember, I'm going to take an index and I'm going to strip that data and put it into another index, okay? If you do not delete the original index, you will gain more data, right? So a lot of people will take these indexes after they roll up and delete the old one, okay? So I'll pick, generic name. Next, it's going to ask me how often do I want to do this? And I could say, every week on Saturday sounds good to me. If I know cron, I can just pick cron and go from there. Page sizing, perfectly fine. Next, this is optional, but you can do a latency buffer. So if you don't want it to run that day, or you want to give it, a buffer of a day or 2 days or whatever else, you can go ahead and give that buffer. And I would highly encourage you to, because you don't want to grab partial data. Okay. Next, it's going to ask you for a date histogram. Okay. Roll-up data has to have a how often do you want to build these slices? Okay. So maybe you're collecting performance data and you're really interested in every single month or every single week, okay? You want to split up your data, all right? Sometimes it will ask you, say, hey, we prefer you do the days. I'm perfectly fine with that. So every 5 days, I want to split into buckets, right? So I'm not mitigating any data yet. I'm just splitting into buckets, okay? Next thing it's going to say to do is what data do you want to keep, okay? And I have 2 different data that I can keep. I can keep terms and I can keep metrics later on, okay? So inside of here, I can pick different fields. Like let's say I want bytes or agent name or customer, okay? I want to take these data and I can do different things with it, okay? So in this case, I'm just going to grab a term. A term is going to give me the top 10 by default, okay? Next, I have a histogram. So again, I can add a different histogram of any of these variables. So if I want the average ticket price, I can make a histogram and do a certain interval, okay? Next, I can also, I'm going to actually get rid of this one. I don't want a histogram. Next one is metrics. So you can see that in order to do a roll-up job, you didn't even need to pick up one of these, okay? But a lot of people either pick up a term or a metric. So I'm going to add a different metric. Let's say I want memory, base price, okay? On this one, it'll allow you to do things like, okay, I want all of these, or maybe I just want the min or the max, okay? So what have I done? I've collected an index that I'm going to make terms, aka top 10 terms. It's kind of like a group by, or I'm going to grab the min, max, average, or sum of a value and push that into another index. Okay. So here is where we can see what's all going to happen. So I'm going to take anything that's K star. I was trying to do anything with Kibana, Kibana star, and I'm going to push that into a roll-up index called rollup 1, 2, 3. I'm going to delay it by 1 single day, okay? I'm going to pick intervals of every 5 days. So every 5 days, I will grab the top 3 terms of these, or top 10 terms of these 3 things. I will also grab the min-max average and sum of memory and price. And you can see that this is the request that I'm going to make. And then I can save, and then I can start that job. Okay, remember that job will continuously run until I tell it not to. All right, any questions about that? Concerns? Hopefully that was a good overview of it. I'm gonna leave it on this screen because it feels like we have less lag when I go back to the stream site.
Yeah. Only question that it looks like. Oh, thank you. That presentation. If there are questions, you. Any follow-up comment on the video?